Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Investor More, and today we caught someone trespassing on my property here, and I would love to hear from the viewers if they believe the story they told us. So this is a vacant commercial property I've had for a while. It was rented. Those tenants moved out. We've been trying to rent or sell it. The sidewalk is cleaned up now. It looks much better. But this happened about 6 months ago. We had to bring the police in because someone broke in. And they trashed the place, made a mess of it. We'll show you that video here in a second. But since then, this keeps happening. I drive by this property every week because someone keeps building cardboard boxes out of pallets. You can see there's some air filters there. And it's happened probably at least 5 times, if not more times. And so every time that's happened, I've called, my guys who work for me, said, hey, can you go clean it up? Get this stuff out of there. But nobody's ever been there. So the trick with catching trespassers or people breaking in, they really have to be there for anything to happen. So when people broke into my building before, the cops broke through the door, went in there, nobody was there. You can see we cleaned it up afterwards. So there's not a lot you can do. And we came back and it was back again, built differently this time with pallets. But again, nobody was there. Nobody was inside. Nothing was going on. So there wasn't a whole lot to do. You could call the cops. You could say, hey, someone built this behind my building. And they say, well, no one was there, so what are we going to do about it? So I didn't even film all the instances of this happening. But this was probably 2 weeks ago, I would say, when it was real cold, had our snow. And there it was back again. There were tracks over there. And I got out. Checked it, looked to see if anybody was in there. Nope, nobody in there. So call me a jerk if you want to. I was getting pretty frustrated with the situation, so I dismantled their house and then had my guys come over and throw it all away again. So this has been happening over and over and over. Now, it's always a little bit worrisome going up to a situation like this and not knowing if somebody is there or not. You always want to make yourself known from pretty far away so you don't surprise someone. But again, nobody was in there. And I think I posted this as a short a couple weeks ago. And I don't know if it's on Facebook or TikTok, but someone's like, that's a cat house. They made that for cats. It's like, not sure where you got that idea, but no, that is not built for cats. And they had an obscene amount of coffee makers there for some reason. I don't know why or what the connection is there. But there was that one. There were a couple other boxes with coffee makers in them. I don't know if maybe they found a store that sells coffee makers and took their boxes to build the house. I don't know what that is either. So not really sure what's going on there. But today we drove by again. I think it's right before lunch. And I'm like, let's stop by. Stop by. And there was a house in this corner this time. I didn't even take a picture of it because I've gotten so used to it. I don't even do anything about it now as far as videoing it. But stopped. I'm like, okay, I better go see if someone's there or not. Walked up there, and there was a guy sitting there. So this time there was somebody there, and he started talking to me. He started telling me a story. Honestly, I just walked away, dialed 911, got in my truck and called the police. So I wanted the police to get there as quick as they could so that they could document it. Hopefully he was still there and they can trespass him. So they almost never will arrest somebody first time they catch them at a place if they're not supposed to be there. And honestly, I didn't really want the guy arrested, but I want him trespassed so if he ever came back again, then they can arrest him, send him to jail, all of that. But that's from the break-in where they broke open my lockbox and got into the building. Now here's the fireman getting into it because I didn't have keys with me. This was on the weekend, and the neighbors next door called me and said someone was in there. And so I know, yes, I could have called the locksmith, but this was way more entertaining. So we let the police do this, and we got a better door. So anyway, the gentleman stayed in his little house for a few minutes, and I just sat in my truck and waited for the police. And eventually he walked out, came out, wanted to talk to me. I was still talking to the police, which was perfect because They're like, do you have the description of the gentleman? And I could look out my window of him standing there 5 feet away and tell them exactly what he looked like, what he was wearing, and had no issue there. And so then I rolled down my window, talked to him for a while, and mostly it's just talking to him so the police could get there. Now, I've had a lot of dealings with the police as far as break-ins, trespassing, squatters, evictions. My office has gotten broken into. We've had rentals broken into. There's been a few instances where we've needed the police, and for the most part, they've been a great help. But I have noticed if someone's not there, if it's not an emergency, sometimes they can take a little longer because they prioritize emergencies. But if someone's there and they perceive some kind of threat, they will make it a priority. They will get there right away. So I told them, he's here right now. He's trespassing on the property. And that usually gives them, the signal to go fast, get there right away. So I assumed if I could keep him talking for a little bit, the police would get there and we could get them in there, get him at least some contact with the police. So here's the story that he was telling me while I was sitting in my truck. So he said that he lived across the street. He wasn't homeless. He said he worked as a foreman at a construction company and made $30 an hour. He said that he was over here because he had caught his girlfriend or wife, he might have used both of them interchangeably, cheating on him. And so he was crying. He needed a place to go cry. And he walked around and found my building. Now, I'm like, okay, did you build this little fort or was that here? He's like, oh no, that was here. This isn't mine. I was just walking around and I found this spot and it looked like a good spot to come cry. He's like, I needed to cry. And he was emphasizing that over and over again. And so then he went even into more detail and said, yes, she's cheating on me in the house while I'm there with the guy, and just goes into way too much detail and just saying some really weird stuff. And so I'm just sitting here like, okay, just letting him talk as long as he wants to. And he said he didn't have a car. He needed to get to Commerce City, but he couldn't get there. So he's waiting for someone to give him a ride, but he didn't know who was going to give him a ride. He had a suitcase with him with all of his stuff in it. And so on the surface, I've dealt with this situation before, whether it's from tenants or other people, telling me certain stories. And people can be so believable. You will not, if you're not in this situation, there are so many things people will say, and they've worked on stories their whole lives to make you believe them. And if you've not dealt with this before, you will believe them. They seem 100% legit. This is what's going on. This is what happened. But if you really stop to think about it and you start to analyze the situation, sometimes the holes in the stories evolve. Like if you're making $30 an hour as a foreman in a construction site, why don't you have a car? How is that going to work? Why are you not at a hotel or something if you're kicked out of the house and you need a ride? Why aren't you using an Uber or something like that if you make $30 an hour? Now, we can argue about how much $30 an hour is, but by and large, that's enough money to afford a few things in life, including a car, a hotel room, place to live, etc. Most people making that money are not going to be sitting over there in that corner in a cardboard box. So while that was happening, the police pulled up, officer came out, he had me go talk to him for a few minutes. I went and talked to him, told him what was going on, what was happening. He's like, what do you want to happen? I said, I want him trespassed. I don't need him to go to jail today, but if he comes back again, I want him to go to jail for, he's had his warning. That's enough. Whether that's the same guy who broke in this instance or not, I don't know. Could be probably a large likelihood that it was, but I don't know for sure. There's no way to know for sure. Was that the gentleman who kept building houses back here? He is a contractor, so it's possible that he knew how to construct cardboard boxes. If I had to put money on it, I'd say yes, it's probably the same person doing it over and over again, and then he's just making excuses, and he had those excuses ready to go if he ever got caught. So the officer talked to him, gave him a warning. He asked me if I was willing to prosecute if he came back. I said yep. And so if he comes back again, he can go to jail. But hopefully that's enough to scare him off and he won't come back. You never know for sure. Now, what's really, really interesting is that this is not the first time I've heard that particular story about being cheated on. Now, I can't remember if I told this story before, but you might remember the squatter at the Ocho. And that person had moved in, said he was the ex of the girl who lived there, the tenant who moved out. He moved in, said she gave him permission. She didn't. She said she didn't give him permission. He had the exact same story about how she was cheating on him with someone else in the apartment while he was there, like exact same situation, and how awful it was, and how, and I'm like, if that happened, why are you here? Why are you still in this apartment? But it's almost like they've rehearsed and come up with these stories to be so ridiculous and outrageous that people will automatically believe them and not question them, because like, oh, why would somebody ever lie about that? Why would someone ever make up that story? It doesn't make any sense to. And it throws people off their guard. It makes people feel compassionate towards them. And, if you just hear it once, okay, maybe. But if you keep hearing it over and over again, it's kind of like, all right, there's some kind of class they're going to, or how are we getting this story spread about so often in the community? So that's the situation here. So the person was trespassed. We will get their stuff all cleaned up. Hopefully it doesn't keep happening. We'll see. I mean, he was adamant that it wasn't him who had built this little house and kept building them over and over again. It wasn't him. But we'll see after he leaves. If it keeps getting built, who knows? Maybe it is someone else. But either way, this is not a good place for anybody to hang out or stay behind this little building. And so Nikki and I were also talking and saying, maybe we need to build a bigger fence back here. But if you do that, then people are just going to hop the fence and have even more kind of security back here and barrier from the public. And I don't know if that's going to help anything either. Might make it slightly harder for them to run away if you catch them. But I don't know. It's a weird situation. And there you go. So this is when they broke in 6 months ago. They had remnants and some makings of a house there too, before they actually broke into the building and got in there. And yes, we did some damage, but we fixed that door and it's been secure. And since we moved the lockbox from here and don't have it on there, nobody else has broken in. So unfortunately, there's been a few properties like this where we can't leave a lockbox on it because it will get stolen. It will get smashed open. People will take the keys, break into the building. So instead, we just leave the keys at my office. And if agents want to see it, then they come to our office to pick them up, which is a little bit of a hassle, but better than people breaking in. And obviously, if people are sleeping behind the building and building houses back there, it makes it much harder to rent the property or sell the property as well. They can obviously chase off some people. Now, I know some people will tell me I'm not compassionate enough. I need to help the homeless. I should be offering them money and food and giving them a job. There are a number of programs in Greeley. We're in Greeley, Colorado, for homeless. There's shelters, there's work programs, all kinds of things being offered. And most of the time, people just don't want the help. They don't want to take advantage of those. And if they aren't willing to help themselves, then I would much rather help people who are wanting to make an effort to get ahead. Some of the people we employ, in different business aspects could find themselves in trouble if we didn't employ them. So, and those people are willing to work, willing to get ahead, willing to contact us, willing to make an effort. So I don't see why we should be giving priority to people who are breaking the law, causing problems and issues, over people who are making an effort, not breaking the law, and trying to do things the right way. I would much rather reward people doing it the right way and give them jobs than the people doing it the wrong way. But that's just me personally. So we will see how this progresses. If anything else happens, ideally it'd be nice to sell this property. I know this is a great video on marketing how awesome of a commercial property this is, but I like to show everything that happens and educate people on the fun life of being a real estate investor. Although the fun part of this property, I bought it for 120 or something, and it's probably worth 250. That's nice. So thanks for watching. We'll be back with more videos on our businesses, flips, rentals, laundromats, commercial, residential, all of that coming up soon, and love to hear what you think.